Dragons. Winged beasts, fire breathers, serpent kings. Why do so many cultures across the world, from China to Europe to Mesoamerica, tell stories of these mythical creatures? Were they inspired by dinosaur bones, primal fears, or something even deeper in our collective psyche? In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating mystery of why dragon legends appear in so many different places and times. Get ready to explore ancient fossils, terrifying predators, powerful symbols, and the human imagination itself. Are dragons just fantasy or echoes of something real? Let's unravel the secrets behind humanity's most legendary monster. Stay tuned. From the deserts of Mesopotamia to the mountains of China, from the icy lands of Scandinavia to the deep jungles of Mesoamerica, one mythological creature appears again and again, the dragon. While each culture presents dragons in unique ways, some winged and fire-breathing, others serpentine and wise, their persistent presence across time and geography reveals something profound. Dragons are not merely figments of fantasy. They are living symbols of the deepest, most universal fears known to humanity. By combining traits from predators, natural disasters, and psychological archetypes, dragons become powerful embodiments of everything ancient humans had to survive, understand, and overcome. This essay will explore how dragons synthesize these universal fears, acting as a reflection of our evolutionary past, our cultural storytelling instincts, and our psychological shadows. Fear as evolutionary memory. Humans evolved in a world teeming with danger. Predators lurked in the tall grass, poisonous creatures slithered underfoot, and sudden natural catastrophes could strike without warning. Our ancestors who recognized and avoided these threats survived, and passed on their heightened awareness to future generations. The snake. Snakes have long symbolized danger in nearly every major culture. From the biblical serpent in Eden to the feathered Quetzalcoatl of Mesoamerica, snakes evoke primal fear. Evolutionary psychologists suggest humans possess a built-in alertness to snake-like shapes and movements, a trait that helped us survive in ancient environments. Dragons often incorporate serpent-like features, coiling bodies, flickering tongues, and piercing eyes. Dragons, therefore, may have originated as magnified representations of serpents. Their large size and supernatural qualities reflect a symbolic amplification of this deep-rooted fear. The predator's face. Cats, reptiles, and raptors. In addition to serpents, dragons often bear features of other apex predators. Sharp claws and fangs from big cats like lions or leopards. Armored scales from crocodiles or large lizards. Keen, forward-facing eyes from birds of prey, suggesting hunting instincts. Each of these attributes stems from animals that humans once had to fear. Dragons, in essence, combine all the physical traits that trigger human anxiety. They represent the ultimate hunter, the nightmare version of every predator we ever fled. See fire and flight. Fire, historically, has been both life-giving and destructive. A source of warmth and protection, it also devastates when uncontrolled. Fire-breathing dragons symbolize nature's duality, powerful, beautiful, but deadly when unleashed. The ability to fly, often attributed to Western dragons, adds another layer. A flying predator defies escape. It can attack from above, another primal fear embedded in our psychology from dealing with aerial threats like eagles or wasps. 2. Natural disasters made flesh. Besides predatory traits, dragons also symbolize the immense power of nature itself. Before modern science, natural disasters were mysterious and terrifying. What better way to make sense of destruction than to personify it? Volcanoes and earthquakes. Many myths describe dragons sleeping beneath mountains or oceans, their movements causing quakes, their breath igniting lava flows. In Japanese mythology, the sea dragon Ryujin is said to control the tides. In Norse myth, Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, encircles the world, and his movement causes earthquakes and floods. These stories allowed ancient people to anthropomorphize geological phenomena they didn't understand. A dragon beneath the earth made more sense than invisible tectonic plates. B. Floods and storms. Dragons also connect to floods and violent weather. In many Asian myths, dragons are rainbringers and storm makers. Chinese dragon, for example, are associated with clouds, rivers, and water. The thunder dragon in Bhutanese culture is a national symbol, reflecting the reverence for nature's power. These weather-based dragons are often portrayed as divine or semi-divine beings, needing appeasement through rituals or sacrifices. Again, this personification allowed early humans to conceptualize the uncontrollable. 3. Psychological archetypes and the shadow self. Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychologist, believed in what he called archetypes, recurring symbols or themes that arise from the collective unconscious of humanity. Dragons, he argued, represent the shadow, the darker side of the psyche that contains repressed fears, instincts, and desires. A. The hero versus the dragon. In countless myths, the central hero must defeat a dragon. From St. George to Beowulf, from Siegfried in German lore to Marduk in Babylonian myth, the slaying of a dragon often signifies more than just a battle. It represents confronting and conquering one's inner demons. The dragon then becomes not just a monster, but an embodiment of the unknown, the feared, the other within ourselves. It guards treasure or knowledge, symbolizing that to attain true wisdom or power, one must first face fear. B. The dragon as guardian of thresholds. Dragons also guard boundaries between life and death, ignorance and knowledge, chaos and order. The treasure they hoard is often symbolic of transformation. Wealth, a metaphor for insight, maturity, power. A captured princess, representing purity or the anima, the feminine aspect of the male psyche. Ancient knowledge, symbolizing hidden truths. These thresholds reflect personal transformation. To grow, one must first face fear. In this way, dragons are not just obstacles. They are necessary adversaries in the path to becoming whole. 4. Cultural interpretations of fear. While the basic idea of the dragon as a fearsome being is global, different cultures emphasize different fears. A. Western dragons, fear of chaos and evil. In European traditions, dragons are usually malevolent. They are often associated with greed, hoarding treasure, destruction, burning villages, terrorizing kingdoms, paganism or the devil, especially post-Christianization. These dragons externalize fears of societal collapse, foreign invaders, or moral corruption. The dragon-slaying hero reinforces cultural ideals of bravery, order, and divine righteousness. B. Eastern dragons, reverence of nature and power. In Chinese, Japanese, and Korean mythologies, dragons are revered. They are symbols of wisdom, rain, and agricultural fertility, imperial authority. Rather than fearing dragons, these cultures respected them. This shift shows how fear, when better understood, can become awe or even reverence. The dragon transitions from a monster into a divine protector. C. Mesoamerican dragons, cosmic balance. In Mesoamerican myth, creatures like Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, represent life, death, and rebirth. These dragon-like figures are often tied to the calendar, stars, and agriculture. Rather than villains, they are cosmic forces that maintain balance. This illustrates how fears of the unknown, life's mysteries, death, the cosmos, were given form in dragon myths not to be defeated, but understood and harmonized. V. Dragons as mythical amplifiers. Why didn't ancient humans just tell stories about lions, snakes, or volcanoes? Why invent a creature that combines all these threats? Because myth is not meant to report literal truth. It's meant to convey symbolic or emotional truth. Dragons are mythical amplifiers. They turn the volume up on what we fear most by combining the body of a serpent, the wings of a bat, the breath of fire, the hunger of a predator, the strength of a storm, the mystery of the cosmos. Dragons become the ultimate metaphor for human fear and human courage. 6. The dragon endures. Even today, in modern films, video games, books, and cultures, dragons remain iconic. Why? Because the fears they represent are still with us. Fear of the unknown, fear of death, fear of failure, fear of change. But just as ancient heroes faced dragons, so must we. Each generation reimagines dragons in new forms: corporate greed, mental illness, political chaos, climate change. These modern dragons still challenge us and still invite us to rise as heroes. The universality of dragon myths is no accident. Across cultures and centuries, dragons have fused humanity's deepest, most ancient fears into one unforgettable form. They are creatures born not from nature alone, but from the human imagination's attempt to make sense of it. By blending physical threats, environmental catastrophes, and psychological archetypes, dragons remain one of the most powerful symbols in the human mythological tradition. To understand dragons is to understand ourselves, what we fear, what we fight, and what we hope to overcome. Whether as monstrous foes or wise guardians, dragons will always fly through the skies of our collective consciousness, reminding us that fear can be faced and legends can lead us to truth. Dragons, explaining the unknown through bones, myths, and mystery. Throughout human history, myth and legend have served as tools for explaining the unknown. Before science provided natural explanations for strange phenomena, ancient people faced a world filled with mysteries they struggled to comprehend. Lightning storms, earthquakes, eclipses, and the sudden discovery of colossal bones in the earth. Among the most compelling examples of myths born from these mysteries is the widespread legend of dragons. One of the most fascinating theories about why dragons appear in so many cultures is that they arose, in part, from humanity's encounters with enormous fossilized bones, remains of creatures whose true identities lay far beyond ancient knowledge. These bones, protruding from eroded cliffs, uncovered during digging, or scattered in remote regions, inspired awe and terror. Without paleontology to explain what dinosaurs, whales, or mammoths were, people turned to stories. The image of a dragon, a giant creature, often serpentine or reptilian, became a perfect narrative vessel to fill the gaps in understanding. This essay explores how the discovery of mysterious bones and the human need to explain the unknown together birthed some of the most enduring and universal legends of dragons. A world without paleontology. Consider the ancient world. There were no natural history museums, no books on extinct creatures, no scientific consensus about the Earth's age. Even large familiar animals, like whales, were seldom seen on land. So when a farmer stumbled upon an enormous skull with sharp teeth, or a thigh bone taller than a man, the only logical conclusion was that these bones came from monsters. Imagine a shepherd on a windswept hill in ancient Greece, noticing the curve of a massive rib cage protruding from the soil. Or a miner in China digging out a skull longer than his arm. These bones were real physical evidence of creatures far bigger than any living animal people knew. In a time when myth explained nature, the natural response was to invent creatures worthy of such remains. The dragon, therefore, offered a way to explain these discoveries. It was big enough, powerful enough, and fearsome enough to match the scale of the bones. 2. Dinosaur fossils and ancient dragon legends. Modern paleontology tells us that huge dinosaur bones lie buried in many regions historically inhabited by advanced civilizations. A. China's dragon bones. In China, fossilized dinosaur bones have been unearthed for thousands of years. As far back as the Han Dynasty, roughly 200 BCE, 200 CE, records mention dragon bones dug from the ground and ground into powder for use in traditional medicine. Villagers discovered these fossils in riverbanks, mountainsides, and eroded cliffs. For example, Sichuan province is rich in dinosaur fossils, where locals collected large bones without knowing their true origin. Fossils of Mamenchosaurus, with necks over 30 feet long, could have seemed like remains of long-bodied dragons. The Chinese concept of dragons differs from Western monsters. They're typically wise, benevolent, and connected to rain and prosperity. But their physical shape, long, serpentine bodies, clawed feet, and formidable heads, matches the fossils people found. Over centuries, these bones reinforce belief in dragons' existence, lending physical evidence to the myths. B. Greece and the Cyclops skull. While not exactly dragons, another famous example of fossils inspiring myth comes from ancient Greece. Fossilized dwarf elephant skulls, found in Mediterranean caves, have a single large hole in the middle, the nasal cavity. To an untrained eye, they resemble the skull of a giant humanoid with one eye. Many scholars believe these fossils inspired the Cyclops legends in Homer's Odyssey. Dragons follow the same principle. Large bones led people to imagine creatures massive enough to match the remains. A thigh bone thicker than a tree trunk or teeth the size of daggers demanded explanation. Dragons were the answer. 3. Mammoth bones and European dragons. Beyond dinosaur fossils, remains of Ice Age megafauna like mammoths or mastodons also shaped dragon legends. A. Siberian mammoth myths. In Siberia and parts of Eastern Europe, indigenous tribes discovered large curved tusks and massive bones buried in the frozen ground. To explain these findings, they developed tales of giant creatures living beneath the earth. The Yakuts, for example, believed mammoths were underground animals that died when exposed to sunlight. Though not always directly linked to dragons, these tales show the same process. Giant remains found. A myth develops to explain them. Over time, these ideas blended with broader dragon legends in Russian and Slavic cultures, where dragons were often depicted as giant serpents dwelling in caves or the underworld. B. European dragon bones. Throughout medieval Europe, churches and town halls proudly displayed supposed dragon bones. Many were fossilized remains of extinct animals. Mammoth femurs mistaken for dragon legs. Whale ribs believed to be dragon spines. Fossilized teeth claimed as dragon fangs. In Austria, the dragon of Klagenfurt is a classic example. The Klagenfurt Lindworm statue, built in the 16th century, was based on a massive skull discovered in a local pit. The skull was actually from a woolly rhinoceros, but townspeople insisted it belonged to a slain dragon. 4. Whale bones and sea dragons. Dragons aren't only land creatures. Many cultures also envision sea dragons or serpents. Massive bones washing ashore contributed to these myths. A. Beached whales as sea monsters. Coastal communities worldwide sometimes found gigantic bones from whales, which were mysterious creatures to inland populations. A beached whale might have seemed monstrous, even draconic. Enormous rib cages resembling dragon spines. Skull shapes with huge jaws and teeth. Strange, leathery skin. Vikings and medieval Europeans described sea serpents like the kraken or Jormungandr, the world serpent from Norse myth. Such myths likely gained fuel from occasional sightings of huge marine animals or their remains. B. Leviathan and biblical sea monsters. In the Bible, the Leviathan is a monstrous sea creature associated with chaos. Some scholars suggest Leviathan imagery drew on real marine animals, like whales, or on bones found along ancient trade routes. Again, enormous, mysterious remains offered tangible proof of dragons, transforming the unknown into mythological narrative. V. Dragons as a synthesis of unknowns. Dragons often embody a fusion of fossil discoveries, natural disasters, volcanoes, floods, dangerous living animals, snakes, crocodiles. The discovery of fossils acted as a catalyst. While natural disasters were invisible forces, fossils were physical evidence that massive creatures once existed. To ancient people, the presence of bones meant the creature itself was real. A. Reinforcing existing beliefs. People didn't invent dragons from scratch because of fossils. Instead, fossil finds reinforced already existing myths. China already revered dragons as rain and river spirits. Europe already told tales of monstrous serpents in caves. Indigenous cultures already believed in spirit beasts. Bones gave these myths a solid, terrifying reality. The logic was simple. If there were giant bones, there must have been giant beasts. B. Artistic depictions. Ancient art reflects the same process. Sculptors and painters added details from real fossils. Horns like a triceratops. Long, ribbed spines like fossil vertebrae. Massive claws like those of theropod dinosaurs. Though artists never saw living dinosaurs, they interpreted fossil shapes through the lens of dragons. 6. The psychological comfort of explanation. Myths don't merely arise to frighten. They also comfort. Humans hate gaps in knowledge. When confronted with huge bones, ancient people could either admit ignorance or create a story. Dragons offered satisfying explanations. They turned a bewildering mystery into a story about heroes, gods, or cosmic forces. Imagine a village elder telling children, "These are the bones of a mighty dragon slain by our ancestors. That's why the river flows here and why we have good harvests." Suddenly, the community had an explanation for the bones, a link to their cultural identity, a moral tale of courage. Such stories created cohesion and meaning in societies, transforming the frightening unknown into a source of pride or spiritual connection. 7. Dragons beyond bones. Though bones were crucial, they weren't the only source of dragon myths. Other factors contributed: fear of predators, natural disasters, symbolism of chaos and order. Still, fossil remains stand out because they were concrete evidence people could see and touch. Unlike storms or volcanoes, fossils were tangible proof of a giant creature. This made dragons uniquely potent symbols. They were monsters not just of the imagination, but of the earth itself. 8. Scientific revelations. When paleontology emerged in the 18th and 19th centuries, scholars began identifying fossils as the remains of extinct animals. Georges Cuvier proved extinction was real. William Buckland studied Megalosaurus fossils in England. Richard Owen coined the term Dinosauria in 1842. These discoveries slowly replaced dragon myths with scientific explanations. However, the dragon archetype persisted. Even today, filmmakers and fantasy writers use dinosaur shapes to design dragons, blending fossil reality with mythical fantasy. 9. Modern echoes. In modern times, museums display dragon bones, clearly labeled as dinosaur fossils. Fantasy fiction draws heavily on real fossils for dragon designs. People remain fascinated by the link between ancient bones and mythical creatures. Our modern dragons often look suspiciously like Tyrannosaurus rex, velociraptors, or pterosaurs. The boundary between science and myth continues to blur, proving that even as we explain the unknown, we still love a good story. From the dry steppes of Central Asia to the dark forests of Europe, from coastal shores to mountain caves, humanity's encounters with enormous, inexplicable bones sparked the legends of dragons. These bones, sometimes dinosaur fossils, sometimes the remains of whales, mammoths, or giant reptiles, were irrefutable evidence that something huge and powerful once roamed the world. Dragons offered a narrative bridge between the known and the unknown, transforming fear into meaning, chaos into myth. They stand as enduring symbols of humanity's instinct to explain what we don't understand, and to spin even the scariest mysteries into stories of wonder. Even today, though we know dinosaurs walk the earth and whales swim the seas, dragons still breathe fire in our books, movies, and imaginations. Because beyond fossils and bones, dragons remind us that the unknown will always beckon us to create, to explore, and to tell stories. In a world filled with secrets waiting to be unearthed, dragons remain guardians of both our fears and our boundless curiosity. And there you have it, the fascinating reasons why dragons soar through so many cultures and myths worldwide. From primal fears to mysterious fossils and powerful symbols, these legendary beasts connect us across time and continents. What do you think dragons truly represent? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theories. If you enjoyed this journey into myth and mystery, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into history, legends, and hidden truths. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, the world is full of dragons waiting to be discovered.